it's got to get out there first. Otherwise, there's an authority deciding what gets out there and what doesn't. And that authority will do exactly what it's doing now, which is pick off more and more things that we can't say and we can't see and we can't hear. And that road leads to only one place, tyranny. Because that's what tyrannies do. That's the process they do. And, people need to be mature enough to accept that people will have opinions that they won't like and won't agree with. And instead of censoring them, they should argue their case and put out information to show that what's being said is not true. People who are confident of their case don't want to censor anyone with another view because they're confident of their case. Look at what's been thrown at me and the abuse and the lies that have been told about me in the last 30 years by the mainstream media. And I'm the one saying they should not be censored from doing so because of this very clear point. Once you censor before the point of delivery, you are putting power over what people see and hear into the hands of an authority which will always, as history shows, abuse it.
I understand what you're saying, but what happens if a point is put out there, and you say it should be put out there and then countered with reasoned argument? What happens if the other side, forces in this world are very seldom perfectly balanced. What happens if the other side, the side perhaps putting the correct view or a different view, or a view that might change that view that's just been put out that you said shouldn't be censored? What happens if that side is not as strong, doesn't have the same outlets, the same money, the same power? What happens if they don't have that strength that you would want the counter arguments to put? Somebody's got to step in and balance things, haven't they?
Well, hold on a second. Where's the balance now? The official narrative is pounded at what officialdom, what people might call the establishment, whatever, want people to believe. He's pounded out on the mainstream media 24/7. Where's the balance now? Now, why in Nazi Germany could that evil grasp the minds of an entire nation, not necessarily every last person, but massively an entire nation, that led to the catastrophe that followed? Because other voices giving another fix, another angle, another version of what the Nazis were doing and why could not be heard. Why? It was being censored before the point of delivery. And people can argue against this as much as they like, but don't tell me you believe in freedom of speech in its true sense if you believe that anything should be censored before the point of delivery.
Do you feel that you are a man at the moment, as we speak in 2018, when it seems to me that you've got more followers than you've had, more supporters than you've had for a very...
Support and interest. I don't want followers.
All right, I knew that word would be a problem. Let's excise that word and just say more support then. You've got more support, but you sound like a man who feels as if he's not under threat, but it sounds to me as if you're concerned. You're concerned that somebody out there is trying to close you down.
Oh, well, no, I'm concerned that everyone with another version of reality in whatever way, shape or form is being closed down. And this is not paranoia. This is fact. Look at it. This whole thing with Alex Jones was not about Alex Jones. It's not about whether you love Alex Jones or whether you loathe him or whether you like me or whatever. It's about the freedom of expression. And if Alex Jones is talking nonsense in these areas, then show him to be doing so with evidence, with argument, with debate.
Which of course people did do over the Sandy Hook massacre. And he continued to say the things that he was saying.
I just want to prove him wrong then. But where I'm going here is you've just said about there must be some balance, and I made the point that there is no balance now. You've got the mainstream media that it pounds out. I mean, there's another quote from Goebbels that said, words to the effect of, the idea with the media is to make it ostensibly seem to be varied, while actually it's all the same. And that's exactly what's going on now. And if therefore you're looking at Alex Jones, yes, he has a biggish following, but biggish when compared with what he's doing. Compared with the mainstream media, his following is tiny. Therefore, where's the balance there? And what they're doing now is not creating balance. Okay, we'll hear this version of world events and to balance out what the mainstream media is telling you every day. It's shutting down that alternative way of looking at the world. And not everything Alex Jones, nothing like everything Alex Jones has said over the years has been nonsense. Some of us have been talking about the fact that this whole Middle East series of regime changes was long planned before even the Iraq war. It wasn't a war, it was a Turkish shoot. The Iraq invasion happened in 2003. Now the evidence has come out to show that that is true, but where is anyone in the mainstream saying, actually, these people we call crazy, they were right? There's a story...
Well, I suspect some of them would decisively disagree with what you just said. Listen, you talked a lot every time we've spoken.
Well, of course they would. The bubbles they live in, they've got no radar of anything.
All right, but every time we've spoken, you've talked about a thing called the totalitarian two-step. Now, I just want to say one thing before...
Totalitarian tiptoe.
Tiptoe, sorry, two-step. Yeah. Where did I get two-step from? The totalitarian tiptoe. I mean, it was all the teams. The totalitarian tiptoe. Before we get to that, though, you've made a lot of references to Nazi Germany and Goebbels and all the rest of it. You don't honestly think that here in the West, what we call the West, we are heading towards something like Nazi Germany. We are being controlled in that way. Is that what you think?
Well, of course that's where it's leading. That's what I've been writing about for nearly 30 years, that the plan is to, and has been, to erode and erode and erode freedom, not least freedom of speech, and to centralize and centralize and centralize power and decision-making to the point where we basically have a global version of Nazi Germany. That's where it's meant to conclude. And this is why the propaganda techniques of Goebbels can be shown again and again and again to be the very basis of what is happening now in terms of the deletion of human freedom.
I hear what you say, but I could, if I was alive, which I wasn't in the time of, and I was German and living in the time of Nazi Germany, if I'd stood in the street and said, I think Hitler is wrong and I hate the man, somebody would have put a bullet through my head. If I want to stand up and say, I think the government's completely wrong, they've got it wrong over everything, that's my right. So that's not where we're at, is it?
Oh, well, you've just confused, Howard, where we're at now with what I said about where it was planned to go.
And that's a totalitarian tiptoe.
The totalitarian tiptoe is a name I gave to a technique which is blatantly happening all the time, whereby you're aiming to go to Z and you're at A. And if you go from A to Z in massive leaps, then the change in society will be so big that people might look up from the game show and the sport and say, hold on a minute, what's happening? So you go in as big a steps as you can, but not so big that you alert too many people to the fact that there's a pattern here. People like me have spent the last 30 years studying and observing the pattern. And that pattern has been to erode and erode and erode and erode more and more freedoms, not least freedom of expression and freedom of opinion and the circulation of alternative information, to the point where there is no alternative information circulating, only what the official narratives are, which is exactly what happened in Nazi Germany when they shut down everyone who wasn't parroting the Nazi line. And that's where it's heading. And you throw artificial intelligence in there, with their plan, as they're now openly speaking about, of connecting the human mind to artificial intelligence. And you see what the end game is. It's the end, if you go down that AI road, of the human mind itself,
well,
which is why so
they're
many
telling us
scientists...
that's supposed to be, and I'm skeptical
so
about it's supposed to be for our betterment. One quick question before we have to get to more ads, otherwise my producer...
They're supposed to be. It's not.
Well, no,
it's
I mean, and
us...
believe me, we have questioned that many times, including last week on this show, and we will continue to, because there are many, and we can agree on that, there are many unanswered questions about the use of AI, and many things that have to be determined. If we were marching towards, or tiptoeing towards totalitarianism and a great big global superstate, or whatever it might be, we voted for Brexit. We're supposedly in the process of doing it. If there was no freedom, or not as much freedom as there should be, then we wouldn't have been free to do what we've done, would we?
Oh, blimey. How much time have you got? Because I'll tell you this story, right? Why did we have Brexit? We had Brexit because a whole area of British society, you might call it the urban working class, has been ignored and abused by the political class in all its party affiliations, left, right and centre, for decades and decades and decades. It didn't matter who you voted for, the same things were happening, and there's a reason for that I can go into on another day. And therefore, this Brexit vote, which was a in-out yes-no, which didn't have to go through a political party, was the perfect opportunity for that ignored, abused great area of the British population to have its voice